What fan theory do you 100% accept as truth? Peppa Pig is set in an Orwell's Animal Farm universe where the animals have risen up, killed all the humans in an apocalypse, Farmageddon maybe, and taken over their respective positions in society. Mr. Potato is actually a human who disguises himself as a potato to avoid being killed by the animals. In Warhammer 40k, the thrusting gods that the setting summary refers to are the people who play the game. They pitch the armies against one another on the tabletop for their own amusement, and as long as they exist the galaxy will forever be consumed by war. The Golden Throne broke thousands of years ago, and the only thing keeping the Emperor alive is that the orcs believe it. The original Scooby-Doo takes place in an alternate reality where the Great Depression never ended, which is why literally everywhere the gang goes is falling apart and full of professors running gold smuggling schemes. I've always loved this theory. Whenever they visit theme parks or hotels, it's always being sold or about to go out of business. Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith. Padme died not because she was sad or anything, but because she was killed by Palpatine, though Anakin Vader did help a great deal, too. I thought Lost the Will to Live was code for suicide at PG-13. I remember being a kid and just like hook her up to a machine or put her in a tank, and a few years later I was like, oh, she did it. They never harvested DNA from mosquitoes. It is all a cover story and the dinosaurs are completely engineered, which explains why they look exactly how we expect them to look. John Hammond already says he is obsessed with the showmanship of carnival acts. In the video game, Jurassic World Evolution, somewhere it says something along the lines of if we used pure DNA, dinosaurs would look completely different than they do now, but we filled in the blanks with multiple current animal DNAs, because you wanted more teeth. That in Harry Potter, Harry, Snape and Voldemort are the three brothers, the Peverils, from the story of the Deathly Hallows. It's sorta a history repeating itself case. Voldemort is the first brother who desired the world's most powerful wand. Snape is the second brother who wanted to bring back the woman he loved. And Harry was the third brother who wanted to use the invisibility cloak to lead a peaceful life. This coincidentally would make Dumbledore deaf because at one point he possessed all three of the Hallows, and when Harry saw him near the end of the last book, he greeted Dumbledore like an old friend, just as the third Peveril brother did. That most of Ferris Bueller's Day Off happens in Cameron's imagination. Ferris is a popular kid he doesn't really know that well, so to cope with another day he's too neurotically anxious to go to school. He imagines what it would be like to spend a day skipping school with the popular kid and his hot girlfriend. Crookshanks from Harry Potter once belonged to the Potter family, but ran off when the house was destroyed by Voldemort, later to be found by the owner of the magical menagerie. This is why he could identify Peter Pettigrew and Sirius Black in their animangui form. There is theory that the Mad Max series of movies are just stories, fables, passed down from generation to generation. Max is a folk hero of the wasteland. All of the stories begin and end the same way. Whether or not he ever really existed, no one knows. He could be a conglomeration of many men or just some stranger who helped out one warrior tribe back in the day and grew into a folklore legend like Paul Bunyan or Robin Hood. There were internet rumors for a time there'd be a sequel with Heath Ledger as the feral kid all growed up. Kinda wish it had happened. The Rock the movie is actually a James Bond movie. Aside from being played by Connery, John Mason explains that he was trained by British intelligence. At the end of Diamonds Are Forever, Bond is on the SS Canberra, which docked in San Francisco in 1971, just 1 year before Mason was captured in the Rock. Never heard this before. This one I now believe 100%. Gracious. How I Met Your Mother. Barney and Lily aren't terrible people. They're just portrayed that way as a result of Ted's biases towards them. Ted is an unreliable narrator. In The Office US, Kevin is actually as smart as Michael said he was. He is also the actual office prankster and gets the whole office in on making him out to be this big dumb guy. The fact he ended his character arc by buying a bar and doing extremely well despite getting fired for making up a magic number that solves all the office's problems just doesn't add up. Not to mention he's great at poker and successfully embezzles and insider trades. That the Joker in The Dark Knight is a former US soldier suffering from severe PTSD. That his unit was attacked by enemies and his team was left to die, but that he survived and is now angry with the government and now wants to cause chaos and destruction. This would explain his knowledge on weapons and explosives as well as being able to coordinate heists and plan out attacks. This is supported by the scene in the hospital with Harvey Dent where he says something along the lines of a truckload of soldiers blows up and nobody panics, because it's all part of the plan. Perhaps his unit was set up and left for dead and he managed to escape. I personally love this theory, but there are a couple holes. Mainly in the scene where Joker is arrested at the GCPD and they mentioned that there is no record of him anywhere, dental records included. Surely a US soldier would have record of him somewhere and would be well known. Those holes only support the theory if he's actually an off-the-books Black Ops soldier. One so secret that all identifying information is scrubbed from existence, so that the government can deny that he exists at all. Then his mission goes wrong, and he gets left for dead and the government gets to deny any and all knowledge of him existing working for them. At the end of The Thing, Kurt Russell's character gives Keith David's character a sip from his flask. But really, he has just given Keith David a sip of gasoline. This ties back to the introduction of Kurt Russell's character, when he defeats the chess computer by short-circuiting it with whiskey. So when Kurt Russell smiles wryly after watching Keith David drink gasoline without reacting, he's smiling because he has proven that Keith David is actually the Thing, but he's still gonna die. Except it's pretty well established that things have all the memories of the people they mimic. My secret fan theory is that the people who are things don't know that they are things. More obscure, but the idea that Ninda Wallace from Blade Runner 2049 is actually a replicant. Spoilers below. Wallace controls all replicant production, and was single-handedly responsible for the reverse on the ban on replicants. He is also blind and uses eye implants. The film shows that older gen replicants have ripped out the eye containing their serial numbers so they cannot be identified as not human. Wallace even utters the line, "We are the gods now." I like the idea that he is an old generation replicant who blinded himself to hide his origins and took over the replicant industry in order to control and ensure the continuation of his species. I'm reading the book and this is a great theory. Also the book is depressing as heck, even more so than the movies. Always Sunny. Pepe Sylvia is just Charlie misreading Pennsylvania. The Simpsons. Of his children, Homer's closest to Lisa because she's the most like his mother. Star Wars. Duchess Satine's nephew Corky is secretly her son by Obi-Wan Kenobi. I also like the theory that her sister Bo-Katan is actually her daughter instead, since she's so much younger than her. Point is, Obi-Wan and Satine had an illegitimate child at some point. I feel as though the writers of Sunny have debunked the Pete Sylvia thing, but that shouldn't stop you from enjoying the theory, lol. Kal-El has cancer. That's why he has no hair. That's why his parents let him get away with his stuff and why his parents are always around. They took some time from work so they can spend the last days of their son with him. It's not true at all, I know, but it simply makes the whole show a lot more interesting. That in Breath of the Wild the hole you see in one of the mountains is the damage left behind by the Divine Beast's original battle with Calamity Ganon 10,000 years before the game's events. That the Joker in The Dark Knight is a military veteran gone insane from years of war and hence is very adept at using different kinds of weapons and knives as well as tactically very sharp. And he was very familiar with military funeral procedure, from what I remember. Not that you couldn't learn that online or something, but still. Dennis in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia blossoms into a secret serial killer over the course of the show, and his first secret kill is Brian LaFave. You're just making Dennis Reynolds a murderer. The Indoraptor from Jurassic World. Fallen Kingdom was part human. I even think I know which human's DNA was used. I suspect it was Lockwood's daughter. The woman Mies is a clone of. It kind of explains why it had such a weird fascination with her. Star Wars. The Attack of the Clonus. The Tusken Raiders that kidnapped and killed Anakin's mother were persuaded into doing it by Darth Sidious. Also the theory that Sidious caused Anakin's nightmare premonitions as a way to turn him to the dark side. Tylee is able to perform physically impossible aerial stunts because she's an airbender who doesn't know she's bending. Probably descended from airbenders who escaped the genocide by Kai blocking the firebenders. They hid in plain sight in the Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation by enforcing strict conformity on their children in order to pass and teaching them Kai blocking. They also have lots of kids to one day make enough descendants to eventually repopulate the air temples. That's why Ty Lee has 6-7 siblings when most upper class Fire Nation families appear to have 1-2 children, and she's frustrated that her family treats her as part of a matched set and discourages standing out. Azula subconsciously knows there is something off about Ty Lee but needs her skills, so she sublimates her aggression into psychological jabs and put downs directed at Ty Lee, even when she appears to have done nothing wrong. Wow, this is such a good theory. My favorite theory is that by Harry Potter being a Horcrux, he makes the Dursleys worse as he is growing up. They weren't the best to begin with, but by having a piece of Voldemort's soul near them for like 10 years made them worse. That's why the more he is away the somewhat better they become, concluding with Dudley becoming an alright person by the end. The US government dropped the bombs first on the Chinese and the Soviets in Fallout, with the intention to rinse the planet clean of human life, with only them the Enclave, emerging hundreds of years later as the last humans left on Earth. The FEV virus was already in the making and was in fact from the beginning made as a bioweapon, with the creation of super soldiers being just a pretext to further research into the virus as to how to make it lethal and extremely virulent. They planned after all to release the curling 13 strain on the wasteland 150 years after the atomic bombs to kill all those who have survived the nuclear holocaust, and reverted to almost primitive scavenger societies, thus having no capacity to even create a cure for the bioweapon. Vault Tech played a role in this too, as they were a subsidiary company under the US government, by creating the vaults in order to create sociological experiments to see various scenarios as to how to adapt on the empty planet after the Enclave emerges from their outposts. The aliens did it. In the show Loki, the main version of Kang has made himself immortal via a Groundhog's Day style time loop. His plan is not about preventing a war, he is trying to find a way to kill himself and end the reincarnation loop because he is tired and wants to die. Loki says that he is just a regular human man, and Kang confirms this. He is not an immortal and has a normal lifespan. I have lived a million lifetimes was a reference to the loops, not that he had literally lived for millions of years of linear time. I will just end up right back here anyways. Reincarnation, baby. Peter B. Parker from Into the Spider-Verse is the same Peter Parker from Sam Raimi's trilogy. At least, that's what I always went by until I saw the direction that No Way Home seems like it's going. They definitely lean into that with the recap, upside down kiss and whatnot. Every new Reaper stays behind to act as the vanguard for the next invasion, meaning that Sovereign was created from the Protheans. In Half-Life, one of the scientists says, "Do you know who ate all the donuts? It was Freeman. He ate all the donuts. That's why he doesn't talk, so no one can smell his donut breath, or because his mouth is constantly stuffed with donuts." Darth Sidious killed Padme at the end of Revenge of the Sith using the dark side of the Force, by draining her life force and using it to restore Vader's instead. This would also tie into the Darth Plagueis story as told by Sidious Palpatine earlier in the film, who apparently had such a knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying. In this case, Vader. I mean, how else would he know that she died if he didn't have something to do with it? I thought the idea was that he used the dark side to siphon off her life force and use it to restore Anakin. The movies just don't explain it very well. The Doctor doesn't tell anyone his name so that no one looks up his PhD thesis. He wrote it while high on space and time drugs and is extremely embarrassed by it. The Doctor canonically has a PhD in cheesemaking. Mario is actually a bitter ex-boyfriend to Princess Peach who has subsequently moved on to a relationship with a more wealthy and more influential Bowser. Unfortunately, his jealousy has spiraled into an obsessive rage where he's going through Mushroom Kingdom on a murderous rampage trying to find the princess. Bowser keeps moving her castle to castle in an attempt to protect her, but Mario is consumed with bloodlust and regular lust. It's a tragic story. Professor Xavier and Magneto don't actually have an ideological disagreement. They realize that having a good mutant versus bad mutant dichotomy would protect the average everydaysman allied mutant on the street, and having a group of extremists led by someone as powerful as Mags can be the stick to Prof's let's all coexist peacefully carrot. They're besties actually. But they're undercutting each other and only making things dangerous for mutants while weakening their ability to defend themselves. There was a gas leak at Dunder Mifflin. This fan theory was actually partly lifted from jokes in the 5th season of Community, season 4 often being called the gas leak year, but it would explain why the Scranton gang got progressively more unhinged. Stormtroopers were actually deliberately missing the heroes in Star Wars A New Hope to allow them to escape the Death Star and lead the Empire to the secret rebel base. It's much better than Stormtroopers being just plain useless. That is not a theory, it is explicitly stated in the movie. In Hollow Knight, Quirrell never died. There's no confirmation for his death or survival, but I like this idea. Him leaving his nail at the Blow Lake symbolized the end of a journey and the start of another. I think we'll see him and Silksong with a new weapon. I don't think he dies, but after the Blow Lake he leaves Hollownest, removes his mask, and just lives as a normal thoughtless bug. Each series of Red Dwarf is set in a parallel universe. Although series 1 and 2 are in the same universe, the books are also in a different universe to the TV show. They are all just different playthroughs of Red Dwarf, the total immersion video game. It's all in the microdot hidden in the eye. Surprised how many Dark Wonka theories are here. Mine is that the Gene Wilder Wonka is actually the surviving Weasley twin. The end when his office has all the props cut in half really seals it for me. Never heard that one. Thank you for blowing my mind. There's a pretty interesting theory that James Bond is just a codename for the most elite member of MI6. Basically, the British government kidnaps a person and brainwashes him into believing that he is James Bond. Skyfall kinda ruined that theory. John Wick is Neo from The Matrix. After the third Matrix movie, Neo jacks back into the Matrix and his life as John Wick is meant to keep him there, constantly making him run from danger, never to question the construct that he's in. There's tons of supporting evidence like the lack of cops in John's universe. And the fact that they're having gun battles in public places and bystanders are just walking by. I just thought of one the other day. What if the Matrix is actually a program started by humans to safeguard the future of human culture? Like the planet is hit by a solar flare or something and humans create the Matrix and instruct the machines to safeguard them within the Matrix until the planet becomes habitable again. The machines attacking Zion are just fulfilling a directive to protect the Matrix from being destroyed and are killing the rebellion to ensure the survival of the rest of humanity. Perhaps humans first designed the Matrix as a paradise, but since people rejected the programming, the machines had to make alterations to make sure humanity was maintained. Even further, what if the real world is simply another level to the Matrix, so the humans are preoccupied during the time it takes for the planet to heal? The music that plays during Doom 2016 and Eternal is actually playing in the Doom Slayer's helmet to help pump him up. An AI controls the procedurally generated music to get more intense when more demons are around. This is my own theory I made up. BTW. Spread it as you please. I remember read this on a YouTube comment. Workers in Squid Games are in fact relatives of dead players from previous games editions. That would explain why they have zero problem in killing people if necessary, and why they're treated as prison inmates. My GF told me the theory she saw was that the workers are the people that chose the other color at the first game as their color. In Signs they aren't aliens, but demons instead. That's why there isn't overpowering technology or any actual seen spaceships. They're tricksters preying on everyone's fears, and a great target to mess with is a priest in a crisis of fate. But unknown to them, the wife gets to give a warning from the other side before death, and the daughter is in fact an angel born to earth. Not just what you call a sweet baby when they are calm after they are born. There are a couple other pieces you can connect, but it's left pretty open to the viewer. The reason Peter Pan and the other kids never grow old is because they all died. Neverland is the afterworld and Peter is the Grim Reaper who takes dying children on their last journey. I believe in the books the children do grow up. When they get too old, Peter casts them out and many of them became crewmen for Captain Hook. That there are games like Squid Game happening in a ton of major countries around the world, and that the American version is the Hunger Games. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.